The last thing I remembered was the blinding white flash in the reactor core chamber. Then everything went dark. When consciousness returned, it came slowly, like wading through thick syrup. My head throbbed, my mouth tasted like copper, and every muscle in my body screamed in protest. I forced my eyes open, expecting to see the sterile white ceiling of the medical bay, or perhaps nothing at all if the radiation exposure had been as bad as I feared. Instead, I found myself staring into a pair of enormous golden eyes set in a face of burnished orange skin. "Stay still," commanded a voice I knew all too well, deep, melodious, with that particular harmonic quality that marked it as distinctly Kryn. "You're safe, but you need to remain calm." Kha'Ruun, my boss, the station commander who barely acknowledged my existence outside of quarterly performance reviews. The woman whose cool professionalism was legendary throughout the entire Frontier Station network. And she was currently leaning over me, so close I could see the intricate patterns of deeper orange that swirled across her skin like living tattoos, her long blonde hair creating a curtain around us that blocked out the rest of the world. "Commander," my voice came out as a croak. Where am I?" "My personal quarters." She pulled back slightly, and I realized with a start that I was lying on what could only be her bed, a low platform covered in fabrics that shimmered with colors I didn't have names for. The medical bay was compromised during the reactor incident. I brought you here. I tried to sit up, and immediately regretted it as pain lanced through my chest. Kha'Ruun's hand, larger than a human's with longer fingers that ended in subtle points, pressed firmly but gently against my shoulder, keeping me down. I said, "Stay still, Engineer Hayes, that's an order." But there was something in her voice that wasn't quite the usual command tone, something almost worried. "The reactor," I gasped, memories flooding back. "The containment field was failing. I saw the cascade starting. The whole station is fine, thanks to you." She reached for something on a nearby table, and I noticed she'd changed out of her usual crisp uniform into something softer, more casual. "You manually rerouted the power flow and reinforced the magnetic containment. You saved 3,000 lives, Michael Hayes, and nearly killed yourself in the process." She brought a cup to my lips, water, blessedly cool. I drank greedily, noticing how her hands trembled ever so slightly as she held it. Commander Kha'Ruun Shenra never trembled. She was the Ice Queen of Frontier Station 7, the Kryn officer who'd risen to command at an impossibly young age through sheer competence and an emotional detachment that bordered on robotic. "How bad was it?" I asked when she pulled the cup away. "Radiation exposure sufficient to kill a human 3 times over." She set the cup down with deliberate care. "Your suit's shielding failed when you were inside the core chamber. You should be dead, Michael. By every medical standard I know, you should have died within minutes of exposure." The way she said my first name sent an odd shiver through me. In 3 years of working under her command, she'd never once used it. I was always Engineer Hayes or just Hayes in her clipped professional tone. "But I'm not dead." "No." She turned away, and I saw her shoulders tense beneath the flowing fabric of her casual attire. "You're not dead because I violated approximately 17 interstellar medical regulations, 3 Kryn cultural taboos, and potentially ended my career." I stared at her back, trying to process what she was saying. "Commander, I don't understand." Kryn biology is compatible with human biology in ways most species aren't. She still wasn't looking at me, her voice taking on a lecturing quality, as if she were reading from a technical manual instead of discussing whatever had happened to me. Our cellular structure, our genetic code, our biochemistry. There's a reason we were able to form alliances with humanity when we first made contact. We're remarkably similar in many ways. I know all this. It was in the orientation materials. What wasn't in the orientation materials? She continued, her voice dropping lower, is that Kryn blood contains specialized proteins that can temporarily boost cellular regeneration in compatible species. It's an evolutionary adaptation from our homeworld, where radiation exposure was a common environmental hazard. In desperate situations, Kryn have been known to use blood transfusions to save dying allies. The implications of what she was saying slowly sank in. I looked down at my arm and saw the faint mark of an IV port already healing. You gave me your blood. A significant amount of it, actually, more than is typically considered safe even for a Kryn. She finally turned back to face me, and I was shocked to see actual fear in her golden eyes. The medical staff wanted to let you die, said there was nothing they could do. I couldn't accept that. Why? The question came out before I could stop it. Why would you risk so much for an engineer? I'm just one person out of 3,000 on this station. Kha'Ruun stood frozen for a long moment, her alien features utterly unreadable. Then slowly she moved closer and sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her body. Kryn ran several degrees warmer than humans. Do you remember the first week you were assigned to this station? She asked quietly. I frowned, trying to recall. Not particularly. The usual orientation, getting assigned quarters, meeting the engineering team. There was an incident in the lower maintenance shafts, a cooling system malfunction that could have cascaded into a hull breach. Her fingers traced absent patterns on the fabric covering her legs. I was down there conducting an inspection when it happened. The emergency bulkheads failed, and I was trapped in a section that was rapidly losing atmosphere. A vague memory stirred. I remember hearing about an incident, but I thought. The official report said automated systems contained the breach. That was a lie. She looked at me directly now, her golden eyes intense. You contained the breach, Michael. You were still in orientation, weren't even officially on duty yet, but you heard the alarm and responded. You crawled through a maintenance shaft that was already venting atmosphere, manually sealed the breach from the inside, and saved my life. Do you remember none of this? I did suddenly, a blur of panic and adrenaline following emergency training on pure instinct, not even thinking about who might be trapped on the other side of that bulkhead. I was just doing my job. You weren't on duty, you had no obligation to risk your life, and when I asked you afterward why you'd done it, do you remember what you said? I shook my head. You said because someone needed help and I could provide it, as if it were the simplest, most obvious thing in the world. Her hand moved almost unconsciously until it rested near mine on the bed. I've commanded stations for 12 years, Michael. I've served alongside humans for 15, and in all that time I've never encountered anyone who acted with such instinctive compassion. No calculation, no thought for recognition or reward, just pure, selfless action. Commander, Kha'Ruun, she interrupted. My name is Kha'Ruun. And I think, given that you have approximately 40% of my blood flowing through your veins, you've earned the right to use it. I couldn't help the laugh that escaped, though it made my chest hurt. Is that a Kryn thing? Blood sharing creates some kind of bond? Actually, yes. She wasn't smiling. For my people, the voluntary sharing of blood is the most intimate gesture possible. It's usually reserved for family, for lifelong bonds, for... She trailed off, a flush of deeper orange spreading across her cheeks. I'd never known Kryn could blush. It creates a biological link. For the next several months, we'll be able to sense each other's emotional states to some degree. It's an evolutionary mechanism to ensure the donor can monitor the recipient's recovery. So you'll be able to feel what I'm feeling. The implications of that were staggering. And you'll sense my emotions as well, though less strongly since you're only partly Kryn now. She finally let her hand close over mine, her warmth seeping into my skin. Which means you should know that I'm not telling you all this out of obligation or mere medical necessity. I barely dared to breathe. Then why? Because in 3 years of watching you work, of seeing how you treat every person on this station with kindness and respect regardless of their species or rank, of noticing how you volunteer for the most dangerous repairs without being asked, of observing how you spend your off hours tutoring the younger engineers. She paused, seeming to gather courage. I have developed what humans call romantic feelings, deep ones. Feelings that my culture considers inappropriate between a commander and a subordinate. Feelings that I have fought against and suppressed and tried desperately to ignore. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Kha'Ruun, when I saw you collapse in that reactor chamber, when I watched the radiation readings spike and knew you were dying, every professional consideration evaporated. I didn't care about regulations or propriety or career consequences. I only cared about saving you, about not losing you. Her golden eyes were bright with unshed tears. So I tore open my own veins and gave you everything I could, and I held you while my blood fought to repair the damage, and I prayed to gods I don't believe in that it would be enough. I turned my hand over, letting my fingers intertwine with hers. The gesture felt electric, momentous. How long was I unconscious? 42 hours. I haven't left this room since I brought you here. I had to monitor your condition, make sure the transfusion was working, but also, she looked away again. I couldn't bear the thought of not being here when you woke up, or if you didn't wake up at all. For 3 years, I'd admired Commander Kha'Ruun Shenra from a professional distance. She was brilliant, decisive, fair in her judgments, and utterly dedicated to her duty. She was also stunningly beautiful in the way that Kryn women were tall and elegant, with features that were similar enough to human to be familiar but alien enough to be exotic. I'd learned to appreciate her beauty the way you appreciate a work of art in a museum. Look but never touch, admire but never presume. I'd never imagined she might feel the same attraction I'd buried under layers of professionalism and assumed impossibility. I think, I said carefully, that you should know something. Ever since that incident in the maintenance shaft, I've thought about you constantly. I volunteered for every dangerous repair partly because it was my job, but partly because I knew you'd be watching the reports and I wanted to impress you. I learned Kryn language and customs not just for professional development, but because I wanted to understand you better. And every time you walked past me in the corridor without a second glance, it hurt more than I wanted to admit. Her eyes widened. You felt this way too? For 3 years, I've been half in love with you, maybe more than half. I squeezed her hand gently. So if your blood sharing has created some kind of bond between us, I'm not complaining, though I'm curious what it means practically. It means, she said slowly, a cautious hope blooming in her expression, that for the next several months we'll be connected on a level that goes beyond the physical. We'll sense each other's strong emotions. It will fade over time unless. She hesitated. Unless what? Unless we renew it intentionally, which Kryn couples do regularly. It's how we maintain our deepest bonds. She shifted closer, and I realized she was trembling slightly. But humans don't typically engage in such practices. I wouldn't expect. I pulled her down gently, ignoring the protest from my still healing body, and kissed her. For a moment she froze in surprise, then melted against me, her lips warm and soft and tasting faintly of something spiced and sweet. Her hair fell around us like a golden curtain, just as it had when I first opened my eyes, but this time the moment was charged with something entirely different. When we broke apart, I could feel it, a warmth in my chest that wasn't entirely my own, an echo of emotion that I knew came from her. Joy, relief, desire, hope, all tangled together in a sensation that was as strange as it was wonderful. "Is that what you're feeling?" I asked in wonder. "Yes, and I can feel your emotions too. This is what blood bond feels like." She traced a finger along my jaw, her touch reverent. "Michael Hayes, you impossible, wonderful human. You saved my life 3 years ago, and now you've saved it again by simply being yourself, by giving me permission to feel something other than duty. So what happens now?" I asked. "You said you violated regulations. Will there be consequences?" "Almost certainly. I'll likely face a review board, possibly lose my command." She smiled, and it transformed her face into something radiant. "But I find I don't care nearly as much as I should. Some things are worth the risk. Some people are worth any sacrifice." "I could request a transfer," I offered. "Remove the conflict of interest." "No," her voice was firm. "This station needs you, and not just because you're a brilliant engineer. You make this place better just by being here, by treating everyone with kindness. Besides," she added with a sly smile, "I'll need to monitor your recovery for months. Doctor's orders." "Your orders, you mean?" "As I said." She leaned down and kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. "Doctor's orders." As I lay there in her quarters, her warmth pressed against my side, feeling the echo of her emotions mixing with my own through our new blood bond, I realized that nearly dying had given me something I never expected. Not just a second chance at life, but a first chance at love with someone I'd thought was forever beyond my reach. "For the record," I murmured against her hair, "you make an excellent doctor." Her laugh was like music. "And you make an excellent patient. Now rest." "You still need to heal, and I intend to be very demanding about your recovery regimen." "Is that your commander voice or your concerned girlfriend voice?" "Both," she said firmly, then more softly. "Both, my Michael, always both." I closed my eyes, feeling her heartbeat against my side, her emotions warm and bright in my chest. When I'd opened my eyes to find my alien boss leaning over me, I'd never imagined this would be the reason. That beneath her professional exterior beat the heart of someone capable of profound love. Someone willing to sacrifice everything for the chance to save one human engineer. Some surprises, I decided, were worth waking up for.